Why is Slayer the most popular skill in old school RuneScape? Hey guys, what is up? It is No Help and welcome back to another video today. So in today's video, we're going to be talking about why Slayer is such a great skill, why people like training it, and why it seems to be the most popular skill. It seems to be something a lot of the old school RuneScape community agrees on, which usually doesn't tend to happen, right? Like a lot of people have their opinions about certain things like PKing, for example, or skilling, but majority of the players seem to really enjoy the Slayer skill and consider it one of their favorites. Okay, so we're going to start it off pretty basic. What is Slayer? Now, basically what Slayer is you get a contract from a Slayer master, and he'll go tell you to kill X amount of creatures, and that's pretty much it. It's pretty basic when it comes down to it, and whenever I was a younger kid, I didn't really understand why it was in the game. It kind of just seemed like a skill that didn't really have a purpose, right? Like I could just go kill these creatures anyways. It's not later till I started playing in Ironman game mode and realized that you had to actually unlock certain creatures with the Slayer skill. What makes a good skill? Okay, so you got to think about it. It has to be fun and entertaining, right? You don't want it to be completely repetitive and boring all the way to 99. Like something like woodcutting is pretty repetitive. There's a few different methods that you could do, but for majority of it, it's exactly the same. You want it to be different all the time and not feel like a grind, right? So if you're doing, say, the Tombs of a Masket, raids, something like that, it's pretty fun content and it doesn't feel like a grind unless you're going extremely dry on something. I feel like a skill needs to have a ton of different unlocks, whether this be content that the skill offers or a ton of rewards from the skill. Also, I think for a skill to be great, it has to train multiple different skills at the same time, right? So, like certain methods in the game, you could train hunter and fishing with aerial fishing, something like that, right? With Slayer, you train tons of different skills at the same time. I also think for a skill to be great, it needs to be profitable, right? I mean, there are some skills that are money sinks and they are great skills, but I feel like the more you profit with the skill, the more enjoyable it is. I also think it needs to have easy AFK methods that you can do. So if you want to just sit back and relax, maybe get a little bit lower experience, you can do that. Or it needs to be very complex and hard, like Boss Slayer, for example. Also, like I was saying, the rewards need to be great from the skill in order to make it a great skill. So Slayer has a ton of great rewards. We've got things like the Slayer helmet, the Slayer shop, different Slayer bosses. Okay, so let's start this off with the Slayer reward shop. So every single time you do a Slayer task, you will get rewarded Slayer points, and you can use these Slayer points to unlock certain things with Slayer, one being the Slayer helm, other ones being like different types of creatures or perks. There's like a boss where you can get the Slayer masters to assign boss tasks. There's also bigger and badder, which you will get superior creatures every now and then on regular Slayer tasks. They give you more experience and some better loot. Also, you can do some recoloring to Slayer helms and also get like some other perks, like on Mithril Dragon tasks, you could get the Mithril bars noted, which is actually pretty cool if you think about it. Also, there is the extension, so if you really like a certain Slayer task, like gargoyles for me, for example, I really like gargoyles, so I extended them because usually say you get 100, now I could get maybe 150, 180, something like that, which is really cool, and you can do that with most of the regular Slayer creatures in the game. Then you can also buy random things like Slayer rings, even up to a herb sack or a rune pouch, which is interesting. And on the last little tab here, it'll show you your current assignment. For me, it's 145 fire giants, and you can also block and cancel tasks. So say you absolutely hate the task you have, you can cancel it, or you can even block it so you'll never get it again. My block tasks right now is pretty bad. Calphites, jellies, and black dragons. I definitely need to upgrade this, but I haven't done Slayer in a long time. Okay, next we will talk about the Slayer Helm, which is a really great unlock with Slayer. Now, pretty much this is actually made by adding all of the Slayer things together with a black mask. So you got the reinforced goggles, the enchanted gem, the spiny helmet, the nose peg, the face masks, and the earmuffs. And combining that with a black mask will make a Slayer helmet. So this is great because it protects you from all of the random things that can happen with Slayer. So you won't have to worry about, say, wearing a nose peg or a face mask anymore. Also, the Slayer helmet will provide a 16.6% bonus for melee, which is absolutely huge. You're going to hit higher, hit more often on task. Now, it gets even better, so pretty much when you get the Slayer helmet, you can imbue it at, say, the Nightmare Zone or something like Soul Wars, for example. And once you imbue it, it will have a 15% boost to range, accuracy, and damage, and also 15% magic accuracy and damage. So it's always going to be basically your best in slot helmet on task, no matter the combat style. So it's a huge unlock to get. This is also really great for if you do boss slayer, for example. Say you're having a hard time, say, killing a certain boss. If you have the task, you also will have this bonus for killing that boss. So it can be extremely helpful for getting your first few KC somewhere. Also, Slayer has their own bosses that are only available to kill on Slayer task, right? So we have the Grotesque Guardians, which is a gargoyle boss. We have the Abyssal Sire, which is a huge, pretty much abyssal demon. We've got the Kraken, which you can kill with Slayer. We have the Hellhound boss Cerberus, which is only on Slayer task. We have the Thermonuclear Smoke Devil, I can never pronounce that, which is pretty much just an upgraded Smoke Devil. And then we have my ultimate favorite, which is the Alchemical Hydra, which you can only kill on task. So basically, if you want to kill some of the Slayer bosses, you're going to need to get an assignment in order to kill them, which can be a little frustrating, but it's also very rewarding, right? Because you can't just say camp this creature, you need to get it on task, which makes the loot very rewarding and very rare. Another great reason why I think Slayer is super popular, because it kind of, in a way, seems like a passive skill, similar to HP. Maybe some people would consider farming to be passive, right? So whenever I'm training Slayer, it doesn't feel like I'm training Slayer. It feels like I'm just training combat or melee or going on a boss trip, right? It's not like I'm going to train Slayer for this amount of time and I'm going to get this amount of XP. It varies all the time. It's very different. It's kind of like you're training it in the background while you're focused on training your melee stats or range or magic, or just trying to get all of your tasks done, right? It kind of just is weird. You are training Slayer, but it's so passive. Now, this is going to be why I personally love Slayer and why it is my favorite skill in the game. And I didn't get this until I played the Ironman game mode, right? Because before, like pre-EOC, I would kill creatures that made profit all of the time, 100%, right? Why would I switch up the creatures that I kill if I could just say go to Frost Dragons back in the day and get 2 to 3 million GP an hour, right? Why would I want to switch that up? Well, I didn't realize the benefits of Slayer until I played the Ironman game mode. I kind of thought, what's the point in killing, say, fire giants when I could kill dragons or something more profitable, right? But you really get to see as an Iron Man that every creature in the game has a purpose and every drop matters, even if it's something like a rune or a bone or an herb. In the end, it all adds up to be so much and it's super useful. So basically, if you want to kill some of the Slayer bosses, you're going to need to get an assignment in order to kill them, which can be a little frustrating, but it's also very rewarding, right? Because you can't just say camp this creature, you need to get it on task, which makes the loot very rewarding and very rare. I could train Slayer for a year straight and honestly not get bored, right? Some tasks can be repetitive and some will take multiple hours, right? So for example, you could get a Alchemical Hydra task and it could take you hours to complete that task. Every boss task tends to take a little bit longer, right? But you have some tasks that will take you 20 to 30 minutes to complete. And if you're switching the scenery, switching the combat styles you use, switching the gear you use, it's very refreshing all of the time. And it never honestly feels like a grind. And you make so much money, gain so many resources on Ironman, get to train all tons of different skills, and even other skills that you don't realize you're training, right? So you might pick up the odd gem for crafting, you might pick up the odd log, which you could then convert to a plank and train construction with. You're always training so much different skills, and it's the bulk of why I ended up maxing my account. There's just so much resources to be gained with Slayer, and you really get to see the true benefit and potential of it if you play an Ironman account. So yes, Slayer's an amazing skill. Is there any bad parts to this skill, right? There's no perfect skill, of course. So the bad parts of Slayer is it's very slow at the start. I get people commenting on my videos all the time, why do you like Slayer? I hate it. It's my least favorite skill, right? At the very start of training Slayer, it is bad. The tasks are really bad. They'll assign you to go kill like wall beasts or rats or bats. You're not going to make any money. The Slayer experience is super slow, right? Because you go into Slayer thinking it's like any other skill where you're going there to train Slayer, right? But like I explained, it's kind of like a passive skill in a way. Whenever I'm training it, I never feel like I'm training Slayer. I just feel like I'm training combat, right? So at the start, you feel like you're supposed to be getting tons of levels and stuff, but it's so slow. Bad tasks, really boring. Honestly, I feel like they could maybe make the start game, the early game Slayer, a little bit more interesting, but I mean, that's just my personal opinion. And Slayer doesn't really get that great until you're into the higher levels. I would say 75, maybe even a little bit later, like 80. It starts to become super profitable and super fun. So it takes a very long time to finally get those good tasks like gargoyles and like abyssal demons and stuff like that, where you can end up making a ton of money from the task. If you can push through the early game of it, get yourself up to like 75 Slayer, for example, I promise you will start having a ton of fun with it. You'll get really good tasks, different types of creatures around the whole game. You'll make a lot of money, and it will just be a great time overall. Another bad part about Slayer is it technically brings down a lot of the prices for skilling materials. I love skilling, and in my opinion, the skilling in this game is kind of dead or dying. I mean, there are some cool skilling updates that we get from time to time, but a lot of the creatures, especially the bosses in this game, just spit out skilling materials, and yes, that has lowered the prices of profit that you actually make with skilling, so I guess that's kind of a negative, but if you play an Ironman account, this shouldn't affect you really. So overall, why do I think Slayer is the most popular skill in the entire game is because, like I said, it's passive. You never really feel like it's a grind. It's super fun, super entertaining. It's different. It's not super grindy. There's lots of unlocks, lots of money to be made. You train multiple different skills, and you could do it really easily, or you could make it really hard and complex and learn a lot with it, right? I think Slayer is by far the best skill in the game, the most fun, and it's definitely my favorite skill in the whole game. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching the video today. If you agree or disagree, comment down below. I'd love to know your thoughts on Slayer. A lot of people either love it or hate it, but most of the community seems to really enjoy the skill, and I would love to see some more skills like this in the future. I know Jagex was thinking about making the artisan skill, which is gonna be like a Slayer for skilling. The community didn't really like that though, and I was kind of a little sad about that because I thought that would be a great addition to the game. But yeah, anyways, thank you guys so much, and I will see you in the next one.